Mainstream media companies are seeing viewers plummet and profits plummet in the absence of Donald Trump. What new habits and techniques will they use to fill this vacuum? Let's have a look at that today. Before we get into it though, would you like, subscribe and turn on notifications if you like to be continually troubled by a ringing bell in your pocket or potentially in your mind?
We wanted to start with what appears to be, potentially, the beginning of a massive cable news ratings crash.
44% in the first week of the Biden era. It ain't just CNN and MSNBC. It's Fox. It's all of them.
On CNN and Fox, viewership is down approximately 20% compared to pre-November levels. Total ad sales at Fox News, CNN and MSNBC are predicted to fall this year by 13%. What interests me is that companies like MSNBC and CNN despised Trump, but also knew that their business model required that they cover him. And in that coverage, they created, from their perspective, a monster, and from the perspective of Trump supporters, a powerful vessel for frustration, alienation, and anger. Marwan Bashara, author and former professor of international relations at the American University of Paris, said the major networks afforded Trump more coverage after he announced his candidacy than any other candidate. They broadcast his rallies and press conferences live and unedited, enabling him to say whatever outrageous things he wanted to. It was good for business. Trump understood from early on that the TV networks cared first and foremost about their ratings, so he went on attracting attention by making one controversial statement after another to provoke, entertain and outrage, and the networks devoured his musings. There was a mutual benefit between Trump and the mainstream media. The synergy was palatable. By the end of 2016, the networks had made billions and Trump had made it to the White House. From then on, the news broadcasters saw their revenues increase substantially as they focused mainly on Trump's tweets, tales and tantrums. The president referred to liberal media as the enemy of the people and called CNN and other outlets fake news. The networks thrived, their ratings rose, and so did the profits. CNN and Fox News became among the greatest profit generators for their corporate parents. MSNBC began to catch up as well. CNN has generated an average of $1 billion in profit annually for its parent company AT&T, thanks to its coverage of Trump. It's clear now that media companies, and this is again one of the invisible biases of capitalism, are required to generate profit. If you're required to generate a profit, you're going to highlight and prioritize profitable stories and profitable perspectives without any thought for the consequences of that. You can see the corollary of that thinking in ecological matters when it comes to the conservation and protection of the planet. You can see it in sport with the way that football is framed. You can see it in music. Every single industry bears the mark of this requirement for profit.
They pegged all their coverage from the right and to the left onto this one man, and now the man is gone. So what are you going to do? What's the topic? How great Joe Biden is? Nobody wants to watch that, literally.
It's understood, of course, that they made much of Trump's notorious let's build a wall policy without ever really examining people's fears and frustration around immigration, illegal and legal immigration, never really addressing them. Whatever your perspective is on immigration, whether you're pro-immigration or anti-immigration, if when covering the issue of immigration, you demonize people who are concerned about it and don't address poverty, fear around job security, a sense of social insecurity, if those subjects aren't sensibly addressed and the people that feel those feelings are marginalized and ignored, then a person who seems to address them in whatever outlandish form will be hailed as a hero. This is the situation we saw. Not only that, I thought that Donald Trump understood what he was dealing with. Slowly, the political landscape became deracinated from its earthing principles. At the same time that media did as well. These two giant pillars became somehow intertwined. So the news media became about entertainment, politics became about the service of big business, and Trump was therefore able to operate in the vast terrain that this bias afforded him as a kind of all-powerful demagogue, seeming to speak more truth than any other candidate. The bland, banal, tedious rhetoric of most politicians became irrelevant. Viewing figures shows this. The choices of CNN and MSNBC, let alone Fox News, is testimony to this. But what it's done is created a landscape now that requires Donald Trump in order to sustain itself. How now can we return to a media that is responsible, interested in reporting on facts? It's not possible because the infrastructure no longer exists. Bernie Sanders, who in peculiar ways has a lot in common with Donald Trump as a sort of populist outsider figure, said Facebook and Google now control 60% of the newspaper digital advertising market, whilst corporate conglomerates and hedge fund vultures have bought and consolidated beleaguered local newspapers and slashed their newsrooms. The result of these trends has been the decimation of journalism. Over the past 15 years, we've seen newsrooms lose 28,000 employees. At precisely the moment when we need more reporters covering the healthcare crisis, the climate emergency, economic inequality, we have television pundits paid tens of millions of dollars to pontificate about frivolous political gossip as local news outlets are eviscerated. Today, after decades of consolidation and deregulation, just a small handful of companies control almost everything you watch, read and download. We need to rebuild and protect a diverse and truly independent press so that real journalists can do the critical jobs that they love and that a functioning democracy requires. It's interesting that much of what Bernie Sanders said is founded on the importance of localism. I feel so many of our problems are this sense of dislocation, alienation, loss of community, the sort of immersion in globalisation, the loss of personal and tribal identity, a lack of certainty and knowledge about where the world's going and what your role is within it. Local communities where you feel that you have an investment in and power over your community is absolutely vital. This affects not just mainstream media and the way that information is conveyed, but perhaps every single aspect of our lives.
And I want you all to know that we are fighting the fake news. It's fake, phony, fake.
Let's listen to that old hack Joseph Pulitzer, who of course gave his name to the Pulitzer Prize. Let's see what he had to say about the values around journalism. Real journalism is the painstaking reporting that will fight for progress and reform, never tolerate injustice or corruption, and always fight demagogues. It must always oppose privileged classes and public plunderers, never lack sympathy with the poor, always remain devoted to public welfare, never be satisfied with merely printing news, always be drastically independent, never be afraid to attack wrong, whether by predatory plutocracy or predatory poverty. Even if you think that Trump is the root of all evil, and I know a lot of you don't, I know a lot of you love Donald Trump, you'd have to acknowledge that what Pulitzer points out as a requirement for the ethics, morals and perspective of journalism is a long way from being met. These are big businesses that are interested primarily in generating profit for themselves and their affiliates, and much less interested in conveying truth to a wide audience.
See, the bottom line is, I know you like me, and this room is a love fest, I know that, but you have no choice but to vote for me. Whether you love me or hate me, you gotta vote for me.
Let's have a look at why Donald Trump had such a powerful impact. Let's look at some of the moments where it became clear that we were not dealing with an ordinary politician. In fact, we're not dealing with a politician at all. We're dealing with a showman who recognised that the environment he's operating in has irrevocably altered. And in a fitting irony, he was given his big break by the same dude that runs CNN. Jeff Zucker gave him his job originally on The Apprentice, and Jeff Zucker presided over CNN in the month that it received its record profits. It's difficult to see them as opponents when clearly in the ultimate reality, and the ultimate reality is the economic one, they're clearly allies.
You know what else they say about my people? The polls. They say, I have the most loyal people. Did you ever see that? Where I could stand in the middle of Fifth Avenue and shoot somebody and I wouldn't lose any voters, okay? It's like incredible.
He says things on the telly that you think that you might go through your mind. Sometimes, you know, when you fall asleep and you think a bit of a mad thing. I wonder if I could shoot someone on Fifth Avenue and still be elected. Well done, oh, I'm not in bed. It just says it on the actual telly.
You've called women you don't like fat pigs, dogs, slobs, and disgusting animals. Your Twitter account...
Only Rosie O'Donnell.
No, it wasn't.
I know Rosie O'Donnell. She's a really, really lovely person. I really, really like her. But that's not the kind of response we're used to seeing from a politician, is it? So even if you, like me, think Rosie O'Donnell's lovely, you have to acknowledge that the way he's behaving is entertaining. When have you ever been at a political event or seen a political event televised where you can hear genuine audience laughter in the background? Laughter is an involuntary response. He's connecting with people in an arena where they're used to being bored, hectored, lectured, sort of like, oh, this school assembly, got to listen to the droning claptrap of some tedious, detached bureaucrat, you're sat there laughing. And meanwhile, you're getting poorer than ever. Meanwhile, you've got a sense that elites are dominating everything and are not interested in the concerns that you and your family have. Of course, a figure like Donald Trump is divisive because of things that he said that are perceived to be racist, things that he said that are undoubtedly sexist. And in fact, I'm not qualified to adjudicate on how racist, how sexist he is. It's pretty clear that Donald Trump's got some pretty out there views, but to focus solely on that and not on his ability to connect with people is part of what created this problem, and I'll be very interested to see how the media that benefited from this figure cope in the landscape that he has just departed.
It's just awfully good that someone with the temperament of Donald Trump is not in charge of the law in our country.
Yeah, because you'd be in jail.
Secretary Clinton.
I suppose I've grown up thinking that people like Hillary Clinton, her sex aside, are exactly the kind of leaders and politicians we're supposed to have. And the reason that I'm unable to condemn out of hand in a kind of lefty liberal way Donald Trump is because I recognise that he's doing something that's so disruptive and fascinating that it indicates the fallibility and fragility of our systems. Many of these systems, by the way, in my opinion, need shaking up. I wonder what this new environment will create. I wonder how neoliberal politics will maintain its stranglehold on media and power without a figure like Donald Trump. I wonder what the Republican Party are going to become. I wonder which direction the Democrats are going to go in. I wonder how media is going to behave now. I wonder if true populism, by which I mean political movements that have as their priority not the profits of big organisations or the ability of the state to broker deals with transnational organisations, but the concerns of ordinary people. Is it possible that this new landscape could become a place where those sort of ideas may take hold?
And we got to remember, I said it right at the beginning, the cure cannot be worse than the problem itself can. One thing with me, the nice part, I went through it, now they say I'm immune.
They say I'm immune. It's like not treating that like a medical diagnosis, but like a new superpower that he's evolved.
I feel so powerful, I'll walk into that audience. I'll walk in there, I'll kiss everyone in that audience. I'll kiss the guys and the beautiful women and everybody. I'll just give you a big fat kiss.
But that's good television, isn't it? Someone carrying on like that at a political rally. Even like sort of recent leaders that you would have to concede were in their way charismatic. Barack Obama, Margaret Thatcher, Tony Blair, Bill Clinton. Interesting sort of people to watch. They're not like that. They're not like actual normal people saying stuff that's like pub talk or bar talk, ordinary chat, flippancy. It's very, very odd what happened there, and I'm not surprised in retrospect, although obviously like everyone I thought it was impossible prior to it happening, that it created a kind of a spike and a disruption in the way that media behaved and the way that power behaved. People's tribalism was somehow stoked, whether it was people that despised Donald Trump or people that adored him, and those people are still there. A recent survey showed that the majority of Republicans would like Donald Trump to be their candidate in 2024. So this is not something that's gone away. Do you sometimes think that with significant historical figures, they function more as a lightning rod for energies that were previously difficult to read, as opposed to being the creator of that phenomena? In a sense, if there were no conditions that required Trump, for example, if ordinary Americans, and by this what I mean by ordinary, right, I mean economically ordinary, regardless of any other information around sex, gender or race, people that earn below that threshold. If you think, what are their interests, what are their concerns, what do they want? If a proportionate amount of time and revenue and interest and attention is spent on those people and their concerns, then someone like Donald Trump doesn't seem plausible. It just seems like a mad ringmaster for a circus that's left town. So what we have to create, of course, I assume, is conditions that don't precipitate that kind of demagogic figure.
The first ones to take the huge hit were Fox. Fox has seen a lot of erosion in their viewership and have not recovered.
When Fox News announced that Biden had won the election, Trump labelled them virtually unwatchable, and many viewers migrated to the more right-wing Newsmax TV, which Trump encouraged. This had the effect of Newsmax beating Fox in the ratings for the first time. In a sense, I suppose, this tendency suggests and exposes a movement towards extremism. We know that in the UK, that when you see a sort of a marginal party like UKIP or the Brexit Party push ideas that are considered extreme, the centrist parties adopt those policies to sort of harvest and bring potential voters back into the mainstream. In this way, you can read both the tendencies of the media and of political culture. And I suppose this means that vociferous and powerful communicators, whether they're people like Donald Trump or people like Nigel Farage or other figures that, you know, I don't have the political expertise to identify, can bias the real direction of power by expressing extreme views in palatable ways. The success of Newsmax shows what power Donald Trump still has. And we often think, don't we, in this stagnant, stale and dead endgame time, that there is no power to change things. Well, there evidently is power. There's the power to elevate previously marginal ideas. There's the power to create figures like Donald Trump when interests align, even if those interests are apparently competing.
For our country and for our children, the best is yet to come.
I feel like while Donald Trump in some ways seems like an anomaly, I also feel like he might be a kind of harbinger. Like, I feel that politics will continue to alter, not because of the ideologies of Trump, but because of the broader cultural ideologies that afforded him the position that he ultimately achieved. The negligence of a certain percentage of a particular economic demographic and the appetites and requirements of big business and the media. These things aren't altering, they're not changing. Glenn Greenwald said that he thought that there would be an escalation of the perceived threat of certain groups in order that the mainstream media could continue to stoke fear. It's pretty obvious that what's required are the kind of stimulation, titillation and provocation of basic primal emotions. You see that in the way that your social media functions, and as social media and media become more interwoven, it creates the perfect alchemical state for figures like Donald Trump, but not just for Donald Trump, the people that run and profit from the companies that purportedly hate him, the New York Times, CNN, MSNBC. So I'm very interested to see what Fox do, what Newsmax do, what all of the mainstream media do. But what's more telling still, I believe, is the behaviour of the big news companies, those, what they call it, the blue church companies that dislike Trump but need him in order to survive. What an interesting story about how power operates and where true power really abides, and how difficult it will be to bring about change in a climate where the most vocal enemies have shared interests. Thank you for watching. Do remember to like and subscribe and to comment. I answer the comments personally, and once in a while we include the comments in the video. I want to know what you think about this video. Did you like it? Am I missing something? Do you think I'm way off track? Let me know in the comments below. And remember to like, subscribe and turn on your notifications. Thank you.